We now present For the Record.
Welcome to For the Record. I'm Will Keneally. Coming up in the show, we check in with a group advocating for Latino issues in the wake of ICE detentions in Milwaukee. We'll also take you to Dodgeville in the center of southwestern Wisconsin's Iowa County to check in with that city's mayor about the need for local funding in the next state budget. We start back here in Madison, where late this past week, the chair of the state Democratic Party, Ben Wickler, announced he will not seek re-election for that post. Now that leaves, at least for now, one of Wisconsin's major political parties without a clear leader heading into a critical midterm election year. Now, we spoke with Wickler at the state party offices for an expansive conversation about the future of the Democratic Party, both here in Wisconsin and nationally. And you can see that full interview up online at channel3000.com. But for now, we'll show you a portion of our conversation here with Ben Wickler. So I want to take a look at kind of where we are, both kind of post-2024 here. We've seen, I think, some reorganizing from both sides of the aisle, perhaps maybe Republicans in this Trump era back in 2016. It seems like Democrats are going through something maybe a little bit similar after losing the 2024 election. Certainly a little bit different in Wisconsin because Democrats or liberals won that April race this spring as well. Where do you kind of view the trajectory of the party, both maybe practically, like where it is heading, but also maybe aspirationally, where you'd want to see it head?
Sure. So if you look in polls right now, it's no secret that satisfaction with the Democratic Party nationally and people's feeling about the party overall, it's not great. And if you ask people who voted for Democrats why that is, it's that they want to see Democrats fight harder. When they see Governor Evers and Attorney General Call suing to stop the Trump administration's attacks on local programs that people need across the state of Wisconsin, they cheer. When they see Senator Baldwin going after the Trump administration for the way they're harming farmers in Wisconsin, they're glad to see that. They want to see Democrats fighting. And in our state party, I'm really proud that that's exactly what we do. We've held packed town halls across the state about the people versus Elon Musk and lifting up Susan Crawford and her record of integrity and contrasting that with the kind of corruption when the world's richest man tries to bribe people to vote for someone like Brad Schimmel. People want to see that kind of energy. And the thing that inspires me is that fighting spirit, you can see it in every corner of the state, in the most rural areas, small towns, in suburbs and in cities. People are throwing themselves into the battle with this feeling that democracy itself hangs in the balance. That makes me feel that our trajectory is really, really positive in Wisconsin. Often there's a kind of swing against the party of the president. In 2022, Governor Evers won re-election for the first time in 60 years. No Democrat had won a governor's race with a Democratic president in the White House. Normally that swing takes place. Governor Evers beat that trend, and that's something I'm really proud of all of us helping to do. I don't think Republicans have a path to beat the trend in 2026. I think that all these Republican office holders from the state legislature all the way up to the congressional delegation, people like Derek Van Orden are siding with Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is infuriating voters. So my prediction, and you can mark my words on this, is that we'll see record-breaking turnout on top of multiple cycles with record-breaking turnout. And the Democrats are going to win landmark victories in the 2026 midterm elections. And in this state, thanks to the work of so many people, I think our state Democratic Party is going to play a key role in that our organizers, our team, all the folks on our staff, and our grassroots volunteers and leaders across the state are going to break organizing records. They're going to help turn out more people than have ever voted in a midterm in the state of Wisconsin, and Democrats are going to have so much to celebrate on election night.
Forgive maybe the bluntness of this, but you ran for DNC chair, and I think to the chagrin of many Wisconsin Democrats, you were not selected. Why aren't national Democrats taking a lesson from what you are doing here in Wisconsin?
I think national Democrats are. I've spoken to National Chair Ken Martin in the last couple of days. The National Party has established a war room that will be up and cranking soon to make sure there's communication happening all the time. They've announced that they're going to organize town halls in all 50 states, much as we did with our town halls this spring in the Supreme Court election. I think that's a great initiative. They're organizing a people's cabinet, so there are people who can speak to each of the different policy areas where Republicans are attacking working families and Democrats are going to stand up and fight for them. Those are all exactly the right kinds of things. I think the biggest problem that Democrats have, in a sense, is that Republicans have this huge propaganda operation. They have far-right talk radio. They have these online networks. There's all these ways that when Republicans speak, they get their word out to a ton of people. And on the Democratic side, often you have Democratic leaders speak, but it's like the microphone is turned off. No one actually hears it. Any messaging idea someone brings to me, and people come up to me on the street with messaging ideas for Democrats, I can usually point to a speech that a national Democratic leader has given in the last week that said that exact thing, but no one finds out about it. And so much of the work that Democrats need to do is to get good at thinking about attention, how attention flows, figuring out how to communicate in a way that people will actually hear in places that they'll hear, go on offense on conservative media, build up the kind of podcasts and alternative media on the Democratic side, and do what I'm doing right now. Go talk to journalists. Don't be shy, because people need to hear from Democrats right now. It's a source of hope to hear someone saying the thing that you're thinking in your mind, but you're not seeing come from this federal government. What Trump is doing is so far out of bounds. And it can make you feel like you're going crazy to watch what Trump is doing and feel like no one's saying anything about it. I think Democrats need to fill that void and communicate everywhere on offense. And when voters see that, I think they're going to stand up and cheer.
Our conversation there with outgoing state Democratic Party Chair Ben Wickler. And a reminder that you can see that full interview up online at channel3000.com under the For the Record tab. When we come back, we speak with Daryl Marin, president of Forward Latino, about ways Wisconsin organizations are reacting to recent ICE detentions in Milwaukee. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back. Within the last week, multiple people in Milwaukee were arrested by Immigration and Custom Enforcement. We learned this week that included 2 people at the Milwaukee County Courthouse, and later this week, ICE made additional arrests in the community. And that's leading community organizations to quickly respond, including Wisconsin-based Forward Latino. The group's president, Daryl Marin, joins us here with more. And I first want to start with the latest on the people detained by ICE. What do we know?
Well, we continue to receive reports that ICE is beginning their detention operations here. We've had a couple of folks detained at the Milwaukee County Courthouse over the last couple of weeks, and then we've seen another couple, detained here in the last couple of days. We're working with families to, trying to be able to provide whatever assistance we can at this time.
How is the community handling this so far?
Well, there's a lot of concern out here, especially since this administration is really taking a fire-ready aim approach, much like what they're doing with the tariffs and the economy. They're going out there, doing as much as they can, and violating people's freedoms and right to due process. In the process, we're seeing, an overwhelming number of folks being detained nationally are actually either U.S. citizens or others lawfully present here, or individuals that literally have no criminal record whatsoever. And not only is it disrupting and tearing apart communities, but we're hearing already from various chambers of commerce around the state that they're legitimately concerned with the workforce shortage here in the state. The Bureau of Labor Statistics said if you took, in a recent report, if you took every unemployed person across the state of Wisconsin and you plugged them into an available job and magically they were trained to do so, we would still be literally tens of thousands of workers short. So we're not only are we seeing this attack on individuals and their community and individual freedoms, but we're seeing it just compounding an already serious situation when it comes to the U.S. economy and the struggles we have with workforce today.
Now, what resources are groups in Wisconsin making available to those who might be impacted?
So we're really, at Forward Latino, we're taking a two-pronged approach here. The first one is to provide assistance. We put together these legal toolkits. If you're undocumented here in the state of Wisconsin, you're working hard, you're providing for your family, et cetera, we put together a little checklist of things that you should be doing in advance to meet with an immigration attorney to see if there's a way to adjust your status, et cetera. And if a member of your family is at threat of being detained or removed from the country, we're really strongly suggesting you fill out a power of attorney form, not just for property and finance, but if you're a parent, a power of attorney form that would allow you to delegate your parental power temporarily to someone so that your child can still get authorization for emergency medical care, for instance, or to be picked up from school. We saw that during the last Trump administration. We literally had children going home with teachers and staffers because they didn't want to put them into the state system because this is something quite different. But it's a everyday reality for some of these families, what they're living with. So they can reach out to us. We could provide that assistance and that toolkit. As a second prong, we're working with a lot of faith-based organizations throughout the state to put together a facts versus fiction presentation that we're going to go and share. Right now, the loudest voice in the room is President Trump. And I can tell you right now, with no uncertainty, a lot of the claims and statements he is making are disingenuous at the very best and hateful at the very worst.
As we look to the weeks and months ahead here, what advice would you give our viewers?
So we're asking everyone, undocumented, documented U.S. citizen, the same, right? We're asking you to live your faith. The Vatican actually put out a report today that said over 10 million undocumented individuals in the United States are Christians. These are people who've been baptized, been confirmed, etc. And all we're asking is that they be treated with due process that the Constitution affords them and with the human dignity that every life has. If you're undocumented and are seeking assistance, we urge everyone to call us at 833-LATINO-1 or visit us at www.forwardlatino.org. We do have legal resources available. We're here to support you in your time of need. And in the end of the day, here in Wisconsin, that's what we do. We help our neighbor. We help those who work in our shops and in our factories and help pick our food. And mostly of all, we help those who are worshiping in the pews and the seats next to us in our houses.
Daryl Maureen, thank you. When we come back, we take you to Dodgeville, where community members spoke with lawmakers about what they need to keep rural communities vibrant. We sit down with the Dodgeville Mayor, Barry Hopman, right after this. Welcome back. Across the country, we've seen scenes like these, tense interactions between voters and lawmakers at town halls. Now, we've seen this at the federal level, but also here in Wisconsin, local lawmakers are taking the opportunity to meet with voters as Wisconsin is crafting its next two-year budget. We followed along with one of those town halls. Here's our dispatch from Dodgeville.
So the way we'll do this is we'll break up and have two legislators sit at each table. One will have three legislators at it, and then we'd love to hear your thoughts and perspectives.
I wanted to be here. I wanted to hear the opinions, and not just solely about our referendum, but what we could do at the state level as well.
Dodgeville is one of those communities that went to referendum over school funding this April, that referendum ultimately failing, leaving some community members here turning to the state government to try and get that money back into schools. And a big push for that will come out of the state budget that's currently being debated in the Capitol by state lawmakers.
We need them to hear us, and we need them to come together, and we as communities need to stop fighting internally and propose solutions and move forward as a whole.
And training voters how to communicate to lawmakers those solutions, that was part of the town hall.
And so with that, I think we can break it up, and we'd love to hear from you.
I want everybody to be at the table. Our civic duty is not just to vote. Our civic duty is to also put forward solutions that are cohesive to the community as a whole.
Now, that budget process also has key impacts on local funding for cities like Dodgeville. We sat down with the city's mayor, Barry Hopman, for more on what he's looking for in the next two-year spending plan.
So initially, for anybody who hasn't kind of traveled out to western Wisconsin here, what's Dodgeville like?
You know, Dodgeville is a really great community. It's out here. I kind of look at it as the entryway to the Driftless region. We have so many nice amenities within our community itself, but also the surrounding area. I think the strength of our rural Wisconsin areas is complementing the other rural communities that are around you. We can't all have everything. And what I love about where Dodgeville is located is certainly at the center of Iowa County, but we're close to some great municipalities that have a lot of art and culture and lots of neat amenities as well. And to me, we work well together. But you know, the city of Dodgeville has been home for a long time for me, and my family, my two older brothers and my mom and dad, we moved here in '77. So I've been here a long time. Granted, I moved away for a while, but the city of Dodgeville is just, it to me has so much potential. But I think it's getting people to see that, you know, a lot of people like things maybe to stay the same, you know, let's not change. And I think that there isn't such a thing as just staying the same. if you're not growing, you're probably a little bit, I don't want to use the word dying, but you're going backwards. And I think when I see, we just had a failed referendum. This was the second one. I see disinvestment in our schools as a disinvestment in our community because it has rippling effects across the community.
Interesting. So when we talk about need for a municipality like Dodgeville, kind of a regional hub, but certainly a smaller community in Wisconsin, what kind of unique needs does a community like that face?
I think the toughest part in the short term that I've been mayor that I've come to realize is that there's not a lot of money available because of levy limits. Levy limits have made it difficult, and especially since it hinges on net new construction. Well, I'd love to think that we could get another Land's End or something like that in our community. The reality is that that's probably not going to happen. So I think that the challenges that we're faced with is how do we be attractive to new families, to young people that maybe want to live here and work at Epic in Verona or work at Vortex in Barneveld? How do we become a city that has enough things that make it a great place to raise a family? But in the world we live in, and because of the pandemic and the availability of remote work and so on, I think people are more tied to a community that has what it offers for their families and not always what is the employment opportunity within that community. Where I think there used to be a time when I think people moved to communities where the employment opportunity was there, but if it didn't have what their family needed to grow and to prosper, I think it was something that over time has changed. There's an economist with University Extension, Steve Deller, that talks about a third wave, and I think what we're in is a time when it's not driven by where the job is, it's driven by where there's opportunities for their families to grow and prosper in a safe environment with lots of amenities that complement their needs.
So you're represented by one of the most powerful state senators in the Capitol. Howard Marklein co-chairing the Joint Finance Committee. What role can the state play in supporting a community like Dodgeville?
Certainly looking at levy limits and the formula that's used. I think someone at our table had talked about how it's a struggle for a smaller community when you're not being supported. Say, the top of the conversation was education, not being supported through a referendum. It's really we go without these rural schools, end up going without these rural communities, going without the bigger places maybe where the referendums are passing, like think of Verona, and because of Epic being there, those types of things don't have the significant impact that it does on a taxpayer here in Dodgeville, for example. So I think that it's what I would hope that some of our legislators would do, and when you talk about Senator Marklein, I would love to see them try and fight for us in our areas a little bit harder. I feel like, I said this to someone earlier, to me, actions speak louder than words. And I sit in sessions like this, and I'm not trying to be a naysayer, but it's a lot of talk. I look at the end of the day, I want some action. I want to know that you're going to go and really do something to fight for us that are out here. And how do we make a difference?
I'm also fascinated to your predecessor as Dodgeville mayor. At the same time, served in the state legislature, he still does now. I feel like that might give somebody in that position a little bit more perspective on what a mayor of a community like Dodgeville faces. Is there any insight that you'd want to share with lawmakers in the Capitol who might be a couple of degrees removed from what people are facing out here?
So I think what you're asking is that obviously Mr. Novak was the mayor here, and hopefully that would bring some perspective into his legislative seat. I want to believe that I think it would. I think that, I don't know how to answer this without sounding horribly negative, but I look at it and I go, I think too often when individuals get into political positions, they forget, going back to what we talked about, be myself. I think they sometimes forget who they were before. They're not fighting for the same things that we want to believe when we had them get elected, they're fighting for. And there's too many other outside influences that are directing them in different ways that maybe aren't truly in the best needs of their constituents. So it's troubling. I would hope that they would have better perspective versus someone that gets into politics that has not been in a role such as a mayor or some other type of municipality level type council member, et cetera, that they would bring more perspective to that position. But I'm not 100% sure that always applies.
Our conversation there with Dodgeville Mayor Barry Hopman. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back. We'll leave you with this morning. Breaking on Friday, the legislature's Audit Bureau released a long-awaited report on diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts across state government. Now, we'll expect the Republican-controlled state legislature to consider options going forward, but co-chair of the legislature's audit committee wrote in a statement that, quote, "Today's new audit shows us the extent to which DEI grifters profiteer off Wisconsin taxpayers." He goes on to say that thanks to these findings, we can now more clearly identify wasteful and abusive spending by our agencies and end it for good. Now, Republicans in the state legislature have spearheaded efforts in Wisconsin similar to Elon Musk's work in D.C., with a committee geared towards government oversight and efficiency. And we could see lawmakers take action focused on the university at some point in the future. And that does it for us this week. I'm Will Keneally. Have a great rest of your weekend.
This has been For the Record.